Good morning, everybody. Welcome to 1 Million Cups Rockford. For those of you who haven't got coffee, now would be a great time to go get your cups and have a seat. We've got a lot of people here today, and we've got some great presentations. So for those of you who are new to 1 Million Cups, the goal of 1 Million Cups is to provide a community to support local entrepreneurs and businesses to present their ideas, their new products, services, and to build that general awareness for all of us. So I'd like to thank our sponsor today, ServPro. Each week we have a coffee sponsor, so Charlie's here from ServPro representing. Thank you, Charlie. I'd also like to welcome the RACVB Marketing Partners Group. So for those of you who are new faces here, welcome. So the Marketing Partners Group meets once a month, and different community organizations get together and talk about the things that are happening. So traditionally, at the beginning of our 1 Million Cups, we go around and we talk about our community events and things that are going on around town. But for today, because we have a large group, we're going to save that for the end, so everybody gets an opportunity to talk and build that awareness. We've got some great presentations for you today. Making Chips is here. So I have Megan Zimba and Jessica Peterson who are going to present on who Making Chips are, what they do, and why they want to stay and be in the Rockford community. So after they present, we'll do some Q&A, and then we'll welcome Mason Cook, the director of the gBETA program out of Beloit. He's going to talk to us about venture capitalist. I can't see Mason. There you are. Venture. Okay. 101. So he'll give a great presentation. After that, we'll have some Q&A too. All right, so I did my sponsors, welcomed you all, so let's kick this party off. Megan?
Hi, guys. Thanks for having us. I'm Megan Zimba. I'm project manager for a small startup marketing agency called Making Chips. So if you're wondering who the hell is Making Chips and why should we care, we actually started off piggybacking off a brand of a podcast, and it starts with two gentlemen, Jason Zinger and Jim Carr. They eat, breathe, sleep manufacturing. Jason Zinger owns an industrial supplying company called Zinger Supply, and then Jim Carr owns Car Machine and Tool. Jason is third generation in his business. His grandparents actually started the company back in 1951 as a hardware company. When his uncle and his brother took it over, they decided that they needed to change some things so that they could meet the demands of their local community better, so they turned it into an industrial supplier. When Jason and his sister took it over, they actually turned it into a crib management vending system. And what that is they supply manufacturers vending machines with all of the tools that they need for metalworking. And so when workers go and select the tools from the vending machine, they know what the tool is, who's using it, and what job they're using it for. Jim Carr is actually second generation. His father started the company, a small machining shop, and Jim started getting involved with it more back in 1978. He actually started as an apprentice. He started working on the manual machines that, are kind of ancient now, and then moved into the CNC machinery. As he started to grow more with the business, he did everything from quoting to marketing, HR, everything. So as he describes it, he started at the back door and ended up at the front door of the business. He took over as president and as the sole shareholder of Car Machine back in 2004. And with the recession that hit manufacturing so hard, he decided that he needed to connect more with manufacturers in the network, so he became part of the TMA. And he learned then that he had a huge passion for marketing and would learn about ways on how to make his business successful by connecting with the communities through social media. He then was invited to a Chicago radio show, and that is where he met with Jason face to face. They knew of each other because they did business with each other, but they never really met. And during this interview that they were doing with this radio station, Jason actually pitched to Jim, hey, want to do a podcast? And Jim's like, sure, but it's got to be solid and it's got to be quality work, otherwise I'm not on board. So over the next few years, they researched podcasts, they looked into what best practices were, and in 2015, they actually did their first podcast show as Making Chips. From there, they've been the #1 manufacturing podcast in the nation. We actually just received an award for the podcast a couple months ago, or last month actually, and it's been going well and going strong, and their mission is to equip and inspire manufacturers. So as manufacturers know, it can be a challenging thing, so they wanted to be able to provide inspiration to manufacturers to help solve any of their problems and connect them with other leadership in the manufacturing community. Fast forward to 2018, Nick Gollner, who is actually the marketing director of a company here called Advanced Machine and Engineering, he always wanted to help manufacturers develop their content because they're not so good at it. They're kind of cavemen with marketing content. So he was mowing his lawn one day. He got a hold of Making Chips podcast, so he connected with Jason and Jim on LinkedIn, and they started talking, and here we are today. We help manufacturers tell their stories, and we also help them develop the content that they need to tell their stories. So as we started our agency back in 2018, we were juggling back and forth of, okay, where should we have our home base? Should we keep the team in Rockford, or should we, go closer to Chicago, because that's where a lot of manufacturers are? And this is something that Jessica will touch base on. But we decided to stick here in Rockford, and she's going to present our reasons why for doing that. So Jessica?
Good morning. Thank you, Megan.
You're welcome.
So Megan didn't introduce herself, but she is project manager at Making Chips. That essentially means that everything I put in the pipeline, she somehow makes sure it actually comes to fruition. So thank you for that every day. I am agency director at Making Chips, so I handle the agency portion of our business. Essentially, we have that big media segment that Jason and Jim do for the podcast, and then we have our agency section where we work one-on-one with manufacturing companies to sort of come up with a content marketing plan. One day, I hope you all get a chance to meet Nick Gollner. He will tell you a story. I am going to share that story with you specifically so he can't do it. He decided that manufacturing needed its own agency specifically because he worked with an SEO company. The SEO company, for the record, does amazing work. Super beautiful work, detailed reports, give you great suggestions. One day they came to Nick and they were like, I really need you to take a look at this keyword. I think you're missing out on a ton of traffic. The keyword was lathe, she said, and it took him a minute. Okay, one person's in manufacturing, is already dying. Lathe, and Nick just looked at her like she had 4 heads, zero idea, and he finally figured out that she was talking about lathe. Coincidentally, that is not even close to comparison to what they do, so that is not a keyword they wanted to target, but he said it had become so segmented that they were just giving keywords to try and see what the traffic was to them, but they didn't actually have a connection to how that was showing ROIs, anything. It was just this big gray area that they were hoping they were getting search results from. That's why Nick decided that manufacturing needed marketers and marketers needed manufacturing. This has been prevalent in Rockford since day one. How many of you are familiar with the Rockford Illustration Company? All right, cool. So 317 Marketplace, it's actually Art Collective right now, 317 Art Collective, that I'm pretty sure you guys should all be familiar with. It's right downtown. They were actually a manufacturing marketing company way back in the day in Rockford. And that is super cool because they saw that same segmented process that we did. And they decided, these are our people. We have great talent. So they had this whole group of people that came together. And that's what they focused on. Funnily enough, my great-grandfather worked for that company, which is super cool to me because if you would have asked me a year ago if I was going into manufacturing, I don't think my answer would have been yes. So, age-old question, why did we choose Rockford? I think I have gotten asked this question a million times, almost at every trade show, because we're a very different community and outsiders looking in don't always see what we have to offer. I'm gonna start off with the less fluffy stuff, which is, of course, cost of living. I very much enjoy Rockford's cost of living. I like to be able to offer my employees livable salaries. In Chicago, it's going to be harder because I'm going to have to contract out a lot of that work, whereas I can actually have an in-person team and work with remote workers as needed. Rockford has that advantage over Chicago any day of the week. It also has allowed us to offer our employees full benefits. That's really cool because I can say we can have employer-covered health insurance, we can have life insurance, dental insurance, all of that, and it doesn't eat away at us. So cost of living was one of those biggest concerns. Rockford also has really great real estate open right now, and there's tons of companies within the area and buildings that are willing to do build to lease. So you can design your space, get it put in there. We ended up going with one through Golner Inc., which of course is one of our 3 partners. So we built out in that space. We have a grand opening coming out, so reach out to me, come eat, drink. We have a full bar in our agency. You're definitely not missing out by coming. Another one of the biggest things is Rockford's manufacturing ties. I'm sure all of you are aware, but let's give a really brief history for those who might not be. Rockford has been known for manufacturing for a very long time, started about 1880s, where the actual Illinois Railroad Company had referred to us as a manufacturing city that sort of created a world of its own. A lot of that came from immigrant populations in Rockford, which is really, really neat. Manufacturing is still prevalent in Rockford. It's exciting because I think most of us are old enough to have seen the crash happen. We got to watch all those buildings empty out, and that sucked. And it's really cool to see companies like Advanced Machine and Engineering and Hennig still kicking it over here. The Women of Today's Manufacturing event is still a huge thing. The turnouts they get are amazing. So those 2 ties together made a huge difference. And it's hard to explain, but we chose Rockford for the culture. Because in Chicago, the turnover rates are a little bit higher, competition's a lot heavier when it comes to our space, and you don't have as much room to grow because you've got a million things and it's a little bit more fast-paced. Rockford allows us to move at a slower pace with our employees. I really enjoy having an agency where I can take Megan directly to a client and we can be back by lunch. I don't mind driving to the Chicago area, but it's more, we get to meet, sit, greet with you, and there's that higher level of expectations when we meet with our clients that because we're from a smaller, less busy place like Rockford, even though our schedules might not be busy, we can sit down with you for the day and come up with a plan. Like I said, I know that a lot of people raise their flags when we say we did choose Rockford, but we did. And that was important to us because while Jason and Jim are based out of Chicago, even they were excited to come here, we have the opportunity to be a little bit more involved with our communities than we can elsewhere. We work with Advanced Machine and Engineering as one of our largest clients. That primarily matters because we actually help them with their own community outreach. So we can use their resources to help better we went to the Discovery Center this weekend. And that's not something you can do in a Chicago agency. It's not. We wanted to be a slower pace. We wanted to connect with the people around us, and we wanted to stay in our roots of manufacturing. And I think Rockford has all of those things to offer. Additionally, if any of you are interested in marketing, our team is always looking and open to hiring. Connect with me after this because I've got a huge gray space of all these things I can offer people and no extra seats to fill them. All right.
Thank you, Jessica. Stay up here. You're not off the hook. Come on up, Megan. All right, so now it's time for some Q&A. we have our catch box, which gets tossed around. This is courtesy of the city of Rockford, so I'd like to give them a plug. Does anybody have any questions? Mason?
I guess, yeah, I'll kick it off. So, 2 questions. One, remind me again your positions within the company. And then 2, I was looking through the website during your presentation. I was just really curious how it's so male-focused, but obviously you two aren't men. So, like, where's the female, where's the representation on your website?
We are actually working on a new version of our website that's coming probably at the end of this year. I don't know.
Oh, no, you're looking at March.
March,
So-
okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Megan. I'm project manager at Making Chips. I clearly know what's going on.
So I am agency director at Making Chips, and I just joined. It has been about 8 months now. And that was my first thing, was to throw out everything that they created, because that's what I do. I took the good parts and we mixed it up. We're actually just finishing up our design stage right now, and so we go into development in a couple weeks. We're very excited.
Yeah. So, I mean, Jim and Jason didn't mean to do that. I mean, they started out as a podcast, so.
Let's be real, there was no women involved in those decisions.
Right. That is the case, but
Yeah.
they're all for the revamp and.
But just for the record, our team is half and half. Gender, racial equality, very important to me. If you don't do it from an ethics standpoint, do it for the green. Companies with better diversity make more money.
And Crystal is actually part of our team, and she does a lot of renderings and 3D CAD stuff, and she has a heavy background in manufacturing too, so it's pretty awesome.
Who wants it?
All right, so a couple things that I picked up while you guys were presenting. From an agency standpoint, going into manufacturing, I think it's really important to highlight that Rockford manufacturing is still alive. It's still thriving, and there's definitely a need to cross those disciplines. You guys should know, as your marketing partners group, that a lot of people look at marketing as a sunk cost, but it could really make or break your organization. So with that, come on, people. All right, right here.
So manufacturing enterprises are going to be your target client base. Are you looking to focus regionally here in the Midwest? Are you national, or are you thinking global?
So we only have a couple local clients. Most of our clients are all over. Honestly, this is just the way the world is moving. I think that very few people in the marketing spaces are going to be able to focus locally only. You're going to really segment yourself, because most people locally are also looking online now and working with companies across the country, because that's within their price budget. I just don't believe that we have the opportunity to only work locally. I think we'd really segment ourselves and we'd stifle our growth substantially.
Well, and to touch on that too, Advanced Machine and Engineering has a very global presence. Their founder is from Germany, and I mean, they've been around for 50 plus years, and he still has strong ties with some of his German partners. And one of our brands has a strong tie with a company named Triag, and they're international. So, I mean, we're working with companies that have global presences.
So I'm curious in learning as I've got a service company that sells to manufacturers, and so I'm curious to see what's that elevator pitch on? What is the different flavor that it takes to market for manufacturers versus selling toothpaste or whatever else? What is it that makes it unique to have its own style of marketing firm?
So what makes Making Chips unique in general is that we have every type of manufacturer within our company. We have the op shop in Jim, we have the supplier in Jason, and then we have the global company Index, who is actually a supplier for what would sell to an op shop like Jim. So we have all three of those different flavors that work with us. All of our marketing plans are built around manufacturing, using terms we know. We do our market research. We actually adapted for the manufacturing industry by following lean principles within our own company because we find that relates better to the workflow of our clients. Manufacturing is a different industry. They don't have the same lead times other people do. So we adapted those lean principles and we actually run a fully agile team at our company that's how we communicate and that's how they communicate with us. And so we worked around that when working with manufacturing because the traditional agency structure just sort of fell flat. Manufacturers are busy. Truly, they don't normally care about your marketing plan, they care about those keywords and those demographics. It's our job to do the rest.
And in our agency too, we actually have manufacturing background. So I started out as an editor for a trade publication that focused specifically on design and development. And I spoke with companies like Mitsubishi or Siemens and semiconductor companies. Crystal actually went to school and has an associate's in manufacturing. She's worked in SolidWorks and CAD, and she does photography. And we both were at the same company a couple years ago in manufacturing, PBC Linear, which is in Moscow. Ian's father actually is one of the originals of AME. He came over here from Germany as well, and Ian has been in the machine shop since he was like a little kid. So we know enough about manufacturing to be dangerous. We're not the engineers and manufacturers creating things, but we know the verbiage, we know the lingo, and that's some of the things that we look for when we're actually contracting work out too. We want to make sure that, if it's a freelance writer, that they can tell the difference between lathe and lathe. They know what a machine tool is, they know the verbiage, they know how to speak it, they know how to be technical and necessary. So it's just part of who we are. And that's what makes us different from other agencies, because other agencies might not know those terms like we do.
Great. Any other questions? So one of the things we do after the presenters give their talk is ask, is there anything that you need, or do you have an ask for this group?
Oh, that's so sweet. Go buy your wife flowers.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have Mason Cook, who's going to present on Venture Capital 101. Welcome, Mason.
All right. Let's get this switched over. I'm going to put my 1MC mug right here so you guys can all see that because that's branding, as I just learned. So thanks again for having me. If this is your first time to 1 Million Cups, this is going to be a very non-traditional presentation. Typically, we bring a startup from the community to share what they're doing and ask questions to kind of help accelerate them. This is a little more topical and a little more educational on a topic maybe that's sexy or maybe you've heard of it, but you don't actually know what it is, and that's okay. And this topic is venture capital. So, real quick before I jump into it, a quick background on who I am. My name is Mason Cook. I'm the director for gBETA in Beloit. gBETA is a free early stage accelerator for young companies. So what that means is I work with startups and try to help them scale and grow their company and look at different avenues to do that. Our program does not invest in the companies. It's free to the companies that go through, and we just provide a lot of resources. So happy to talk about that on a different note. But venture capital, what the heck is it? Does anybody know what venture capital is? By raise of hands, maybe? Cool. So we got some initiated in the room. And maybe if you're not initiated into venture capital, an easy way to think of it is Shark Tank. Does everybody maybe know Shark Tank? It's a quirky little show on, I don't know, on TV somewhere. I'm a Netflix guy, so I don't know. But it's essentially investing in companies in exchange for ownership. And if you've seen Shark Tank and you kind of have that as a baseline, that's a good example, but it's also a little Hollywood-esque. And so before diving into how to raise venture capital, it's kind of important to understand what it is, how everybody's motivated, and kind of how it all works. So essentially, if you're a startup and you want to raise a bunch of money to grow your company, you might look at equity financing as a vehicle to do that, meaning I'm going to give up ownership in my company to somebody who can write a big check and grow it with them and then sell my company. And so venture capitalists, just like a startup, they actually raise money themselves. So they reach out to high net worth individuals and they put together a fund and they aim to have returns in 10 years. And why that's important is for the first 5 years, they're actually putting money into companies. And then for the next 5 years of that 10-year fund, they're then kind of helping these companies grow or nurturing that investment. Because if you've ever started a company, you know it's not an overnight thing. It takes a long time to turn a company into something worthwhile. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears go into that. And so if you look at the math a little bit, I'm going to get a little nerdy on you, but if you look at the math, venture capitalists will invest in, let's say, 100 companies, but 99 of those companies are going to fail. Right? Statistically, 6 out of 7 companies fail. So most of the companies will fail, meaning the returns from one deal has to be so big that it covers all the losses and provides return. And so they look for companies that can scale 100x, right? And so how they do that again, venture capitalists invest dollars in exchange for equity, and they make their investment back when a startup has an exit or liquidity event. So if those words mean nothing to you, that's okay. What that really means is they're looking for companies that can sell, meaning they might go public, you might be able to buy them on the stock market, or realistically, they would get acquired by somebody that says, hey, I love what you're doing, I can see this strategically in our business, we're gonna buy you. A couple notable acquisitions would be Microsoft buying LinkedIn for $28 billion. It was awesome. So investors in LinkedIn made a lot of money from that because the company was acquired and now the money they had in the company is now liquid, right? If you have your money in a CD at a bank, it's not necessarily liquid. You have to wait some time before you can get that back plus return. So that's kind of how venture capital works. And so the point here is they look for companies that can grow because the math has to work out for each individual company. Okay, so now you kind of have a baseline understanding of how that works, so I'm going to just rattle through this real quick. So why do companies even raise money? Well, 3 main reasons: competitive landscape, intellectual property, and customer acquisition. So if I'm a company and I have a scalable potential, I might raise money because if my idea is really good, people are going to be trying to replicate it, right? There's a picture of wolves up here because, well, wolves hunt things and track them down and get them. And so when you're growing a company, if your idea is awesome, other people might have the same idea. So it would make sense to raise money through venture capital or other financing vehicles as well. But through venture capital, they might look to raise money to give themselves enough runway to get market share and to grow their company so that it's harder for somebody else to come in and say, I'm going to do what you do and do it better. Because the early bird gets the worm, so to speak. So as Jeff Bezos once said, your margin is my opportunity. So anymore, and I think there's arguments for and against this, but if you have a high margin product or a high margin service, there's opportunity for growth there. And so startups might come in and do something a lot cheaper, but do it at scale through technology. And so startups might raise money to have lower margin but high scale, and that's a really viable business model. So secondly, intellectual property. Companies would raise money because getting patents, getting intellectual property, getting IP, building out a brand, that can cost a lot of money. And then lastly, this is a silly little phrase or a silly little equation, but it's something that's thrown around a lot, which is CAC over LTV. I'm not going to get too nerdy on you, but basically all that means is when you're acquiring customers in a scalable startup, what people really look for is that you know how much money it costs to acquire a customer and how much money that customer's worth. And so if it costs you more money to get a customer than the customer's worth, that's a bad business model. But if instead the cost to acquire a customer versus how much they're worth, if it costs less to bring them in to what they bring, then that's great. Industry standard right now, I think best practices is if it costs 3 times less to acquire a customer than they bring in, then that's great. Why this matters is as you're building maybe a software company or a SaaS company. Does everybody know what SaaS is? Software as a service. So if you're building a SaaS company, it might cost you $1,000 to get a customer, and then they pay you monthly incremental payments for years. And it's a great business model. But if it costs $1,000 to get a customer, you have to have $1,000 to get that customer. So at a micro level, here's maybe a chart of what that looks like. At a more of a macro level, what if I get 10 customers? Now I have to have $10,000 to get these folks. Now what if I scale that over months? Meaning month 1, I get 2 customers, month 2, I get 3 customers down the road. But it takes a full 12 months to actually make that money back. That means you're floating a lot of costs. So at an even broader level, if you're building a software company, you might need $1 million to get 1,000 customers before you can ever see that hockey stick growth, right? And so people will go off and raise capital to acquire all those customers. So lastly, what do VCs really look for? Now that you kind of understand how it works, why companies would even raise money, let's say you want to raise money yourself, how do you even do it, and what do venture capitalists look for? They look for traction and growth. If you have a company that is making traction and is growing. And by traction, I mean sales. If you've even sold $1, you're ahead of 99% of startups. So if you have made any sales and you're growing, that's what people like to see. And this might sound a little goofy, but I promise it makes sense if you really think about it. Companies that are succeeding despite themselves is a good thing for a startup. Meaning, if you're succeeding, even though your company or your platform's maybe buggy, there's a ton of things that are going wrong, but your product's so great that people love it and will go miles to find it, that's something that's interesting to venture capitalists. Additionally, at an early stage, the thing people really care about is story. Can you tell your story? And why that matters, because it sounds kind of silly, right? Everybody should tell a story, but when you really dig into it, if you can tell a story, that means you can generally recruit employees. That means you can generally recruit other people, customers, employees, or maybe even other investors to your company. If you can be kind of that inspirational person, that leader that people want to get behind because you can tell a dang good story. Can I swear? A damn good story? All right, Wednesday morning. Lastly, they're looking for a great team. And so what I would say is if you're a company and you're looking to scale, is your team the dream team? Meaning, is this team the right team, the only team in the world that can make this product happen? I'm looking for teams that are the right folks. They're the right combination of skills. Their gaps are filled, everybody has a good role, and there's no dead weight. I'm looking for teams like that. So, in conclusion, raising venture capital can seem really difficult and confusing. And maybe this was the first time you've ever even learned about venture capital. And I hope I explained it okay enough to go have a conversation with your great Aunt Susie over Thanksgiving about it. Raising venture capital can seem difficult and confusing, but it doesn't have to be. There's programs like gBETA. I run gBETA up in Beloit, and we work with startups to help them navigate this. There's other resources, there's other accelerators, there's other folks that know this topic. And if you're in the position where you're looking to raise capital, I'd encourage you to reach out to folks like that understand it and can help. So I'm going to open it up for questions. I know that was totally a nebulous and maybe the first time you ever heard about venture capital, but if you have any questions, technical or not, happy to answer them.
Thanks, Mason.
Woo!
Let me present to you our 1 Million Cups travel mug. All right, so questions. We should be old friends by now, so don't be shy.
So how many people apply a year to go through your program?
For gBETA in Beloit, I run 2 programs a year, so I work with 5 companies per program. So we're currently opening up applications for our spring 2020 cohort, meaning we'll select 5 companies and work with them over a 7-week program. During that program, we do one-on-one coaching, we connect them to mentors, even investors, and try to build out the foundations of their business to help them be maybe venture backable or scalable. That doesn't mean every company is going to go raise money. In fact, I would never recommend giving up equity of your business just for fun. Like, don't do that. How many people apply? It's so cyclical based on the program. And frankly, I just moved here in November. So I've actually never gone through the recruitment period of gBETA. We just wrapped up our first cohort, but to be completely honest, I don't know the general numbers of how many people apply. And for me, I care less about having tons and tons of applicants. I want the right people to apply. If I have 5 rockstar companies apply and that are shoo-ins for growth, scalability, and a great fit for the program, that's enough for me. But if we have 1 million companies apply, that's great too. So yeah, if you know anybody who's building a company in your garage or in your basement or your grandma's basement, have them talk to me.
Any other questions? So I think you've kind of asked, right, or given awareness. In this area, I think that we need more people to come out of the woodwork, to know about our resources so that new businesses that are forming, people that have that idea and really don't know where to go to take it to the next level, things that could happen are coming to 1 Million Cups and broadening our awareness and our network. Connecting with organizations like gBETA and Mason. He might be new to the area, but he is a wealth of knowledge. It's important, too, that those of you who know good connections that might be a good fit for Mason to know to expand his network, that would be my ask for you,
Thanks.
right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're here for. That's part of our community. So thank you very much.
And if you want to get nerdy with me about venture capital math, happy to do it too. We can schedule an hour and whiteboard some stuff out, and it'll be a lot of fun, I promise.
Sure. Okay, so I wanted to make an announcement about some of us have 1 Million Cups mugs, like the one here. So we're trying an effort to go a little bit more green instead of having styrofoam. So each week we'll have the ceramic mugs out that we could use. When you're done with them, go ahead and put them on this table, and then we'll take care of them, wash them every week. And if you want to bring your own mug, that's great too. So that's the one plug. Next up is to discuss upcoming events. So for those of you who'd like to stay and kind of connect with the RACVB Marketing Partners Group, you're more than welcome to do that. Those that need to go but want to plug an event, let's do that quick. Anybody? Colin?
The WOTM has an upcoming event. Does anybody know anything about that?
Oh, why, yes, Colin. I know everything about that. So I've got lovely flyers for you all to take. WOTM is Women of Today's Manufacturing, so I guess that's a great segue. These ladies are involved in the organization. We're a nonprofit professional organization that works to advance career pathways for men and women pursuing their careers and education in manufacturing or engineering-related fields. So we have an upcoming event next Thursday, February 27th. All the information is here. We're raising, it's our annual dinner, so that we could raise funds for our scholarships. So it's really important that everybody knows about it. We have a good attendance rate right now. It's looking like we're going to have to cap that, hopefully by the end of this week. So if anybody's interested in attending, get on Eventbrite, sign up for it, and I look forward to seeing you all there. All right, so thank you for that nice segue. That's what's happening. Okay, so let's get together. Maybe we should form a circle with, oh, and are we off the air? No, we're still live. I don't know if I didn't tell you guys, we live stream this every week. So we are part of the Facebook world today and every Wednesday from 9 to 10 a.m. So let's cut it.